Brzezinski model, the technocrat model, is much more interested in the incremental, slow kill, Fabian approach to bringing technocracy into being. So they're not going to send Homeland Security troops to round you up and put you in a FEMA camp. They'd much rather promote everybody being enmeshed in video games, the Disney gulag, the virtual reality gulag, all this kind of stuff is a much better FEMA camp in your home. They don't need the FEMA camp. It's too messy. It's a big ordeal. And so all the nonsense of all the patriot crap on the radio, that's not going to happen. They don't need to. The shadow global government is already here. And as we said, it's in the latter stages of the mopping up process to move it into the next phase, i.e. between two pages of the next page. Once you have atheism, there's not really any foundation. Anything can come and go.
Yo.
What's up?
What's up, dude? We're not on video, but we are on audio. Do not say the naughty words. Do not say Gill Bates. Do not say it.
Can't say Gill Bates.
You can say it. You ready to go live?
Yeah, can I say the end?
No, don't say that, because we are live. Do not say any of those mean, nasty words. The audio can hear, the audience can hear you, Tristan. They can hear the real Tristan, full of his hateful hate speech.
I don't.
Yes.
I'm looking at your stream right now. We just do an audio, no video. That's cool.
No, dude. I'm bringing it in slow, dog.
You gotta ease into it. Oh, there we go. See me? I just popped up. Was cracking, audience. What are you guys looking at? Stop looking at me all weird. What are you guys doing? You're just sitting there staring at me. Bunch of weirdos.
Shut up, Tristan. You're an attention whore. You want to win most popular superlative of YouTube. You know that. You and Trunk Soprano or whatever his name is. Trunk Soprano. Frank Trapinko.
I'm the most popular person on YouTube, man. I'm the most popular.
We should have superlatives of YouTube, and you and Frank could be a couple. I look like shite. I look like a damn ghost. I'm glowing with ghost power.
I was gonna say that, but I thought
I've already passed on, and this is I'm coming to you from the beyond. After the carunka has killed me, so I'm coming to you as a saint. Oh.
He's been tanning under the moonlight.
The goddess. I've been tanning under the goddess's Sybil. I've got a Sybil tan. All right. Thank you. We are live. We got our boy Tristan in the house. I finally got this nonsense of video crap to work. It took forever. But thank you to Tristan. Thank you to Father Deacon Ananias, and many others who spent hours with me the other day getting this ready for the big interview that we did with Metropolitan Jonah yesterday. But today, my good bro, Tristan Haggard joins me.
Yeah, you're supposed to roll the R. Tristan
Haggard.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the foreign.
I mean, you have to introduce me, but like they all know who I am.
Yes, that's the foreign, right? But not a lot of people know your foreign douchebaggy pronunciation of the proper way to say your name.
I want to be introduced as E-Celebrity Tristan, or just Celebrity.
E-Celeb Tristan. Who
Celebrity name dropper Tristan.
Who inspired me to sing the Imagine song like all the other celebs? That was a great idea Tristan had.
Beautiful. I think that's probably the most important video I've ever made as far as like inspiration and changing the world and whatnot.
I found myself weeping in the bathtub when I heard it, and hence I sang from the bathtub when you did that.
I was weeping from multiple orifices.
Your butt was weeping somehow? Okay.
Different fluids. So many fluids came out of me after that video. You know, when you're crying so hard and that like there's just snot everywhere. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, actually today when I was putting gas into my car when I was going on the way to the nice gas station today. I mean the nice grocery store. I had to pull over and get gas, and there was an amorphous sticky fluid on the gas handle pump thing. We're going to cross our fingers and hope that it was snot, because it could be other things.
Yeah. You should have tried to impregnate yourself with it. What if it was some rich dudes, you know? I mean, you can get some cash out of that, dog.
Well, you are actually going to tell us a little bit about this in this discussion, because you have done some research into Jeffstein Effrey. You have done some research into Mr. Gill Bates. Your streams have been on point. They have been based. They have been Chad. And we are going to talk about some of that material. But now this first hour is going to be public. We're going to be talking about some of the things that my audience may not be super familiar with. Namely, some of these characters like the mystical Dr. Gregor. I want to talk a little bit about him to you, because he's one of these characters that's like a front. Like he's put out there to promote this idea. He's a kind of a public face of a bunch of nonsense. But in hour two, we're going to get more hardcore. I want to ask you about the big food companies. I want to ask you about some of these NGOs that are behind the alteration of diet and health. I want to ask you about Kellogg, Cargill, GMOs, a lot of the stuff that you have done a lot of research on. But maybe in this first hour, before we get into the heavy stuff in hour two, why do we even, I mean, I'd never heard of this dude because I don't follow that stuff too much. I lost you. We're Tristan. I just have me. I'm interviewing me. Jay, you're much more handsome than Tristan. How do you feel about Tristan being kicked out of the room? I feel that I am definitely much more handsome than Tristan. And I could do a Tristan impersonation to interview myself. I'm all messed up now because I lost Tristan. Oh, I'm Tristan. Oh, Tristan. I live in Ecuador. Oh, I have sheep and goats everywhere. Oh, I'm Tristan. Oh. That's my bad faking gay impersonation of Tristan. Where did Tristan go? All right. He got, I guess, lost his police state in Ecuador. Third world banana dictators cut off his infranet. Is he back?
I'm back.
Okay, I was impersonating you in a very accurate way. I hope you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, I'm
I was
sure it's
interviewing myself as you. So
okay, great.
okay, so so tell us about Dr. Greger. Why does he matter? I'd never heard of this clown until I was really into watching your material. You have been blasting this dude. It's hilarious, the jokes you've been cutting about this character. Who is he? Why does he matter? And then we'll get into maybe the engineering of our mindset on food.
Well, the reason he came out yesterday, I did a stream yesterday, and I was kind of talking about. He's a hilarious character. First of all, he this vegan promoter doctor guy that a lot of these vegan activists like to. He's kind of like the icon of veganism. He's like the holy the holy man of veganism. Like his holiness, the Dalai Gregor, is one of the nicknames that I've given him. But he's a kind of a mysterious dude in some ways. When you actually look into his history, he calls himself a doctor. He never completed his residency. He's never treated a single patient, and he's very deceptive about it. He wants to promote himself as some doctor that's treating millions of people every day through his dietary recommendations. Um, but when you really look into this guy's past and his history, it becomes really obvious that he's kind of like a Bill Nye type character. He's this dude that he does have a medical degree, but he never completed his residency. He dresses up like a doctor and essentially promotes himself as an expert on the science, right? The science. I watch all the or I read all the scientific literature every day so that you don't have to. And it's funny because when he first came out, some of the first things he did in his career were to fearmonger against eating meat about the mad cow disease scare. So the mad cow disease thing was kind of going around. People were freaked out about it. He started telling people that they could get mad fish disease. He basically like invented this disease that didn't even exist and was fear mongering about mad fish disease right out of college, right? So he's telling people that they're going to get mad fish disease because he found some study from some Greek
Now,
scientists.
is this like a fish disease that's going to drive you crazy, or is this like, yo, mad fish disease, dog?
Yeah,
Which one?
mad fish disease.
Mad fish
It,
disease, like, yo, I got mad cow disease, dog. I was squirting milk out of everything. I had mad.
yeah, I think it's a. Have you seen a fish called Wanda?
Yeah.
I think it's a reference to
So he just
that.
made this up.
He basically made this up. Like he claimed because he found some study where they were trying to give mad cow disease to fish by feeding them central nervous systems of cows that were diseased with mad cow disease to fish, which don't eat beef. And so, and they actually even found in this study that they weren't able to give them symptoms of mad cow disease. So it didn't even work. So this dude freaking everyone out about this fake disease. And he's been going on about since at least 2008, warning about these coming viruses. And we watched this clip yesterday, and it was pretty weird. This clip about of Dr. Greger warning everybody about these future viruses that are going to be spread because people won't stop eating animal foods. Um, he was blaming future virus outbreaks on people eating meat, basically. And he said, look, check out swine flu,
Mm-hmm.
check out the bird flu. These are obviously because human beings shouldn't be eating meat, right? Now, look, I don't care if you want to be vegan. I don't care if you don't want to eat meat. That's all fine with me. But it is pretty dang well known that you can't live off of a vegan diet without heavy supplementation, right? It's a nutrient deficient diet. It's not going to give you the nutrition you need. Very deficient in things like, well, first of all, vitamin B12, B vitamins, zinc, heme iron, like a digestible, bioavailable iron, um, and a multitude of other vitamins and minerals that we require, right? And everybody with this new virus that's going around, everybody freaked out about it. One of the mechanisms of one of the known treatments for it, this chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, these are actually functioning to help you shuttle zinc into the cells. But if you're on a vegan diet, you're going to be inherently deficient in zinc, right? Zinc comes from animal foods. You can get all the nutrients you need from animal foods. You can't get all the nutrients you need from plant foods. As simple as I can put it, right? So he's promoting a nutrient deficient diet, telling us we're going to die if we don't eat this nutrient deficient diet. He's clearly nutrient deficient, right? So he's just another one of these characters, these vegan ideologues that's kind of propelled in front of us to create fear about eating animal foods and to push an agenda that's essentially social justice for the animals,
Right.
right? So this guy, his whole shtick is social justice for the animals, basically. And there's a clip from him, an audio clip that I found um, of him. I think it's 2003 or 2004, saying that we vegans need to unite with all the other social justice movements, feminism,
Oh yeah.
uh, gay rights, all this stuff. We need to unite with these groups to push social justice for the animals. And corporate globalization is the excuse that we've been needing to unite all these movements. So he's got this intersectionalist view of how to promote veganism, which, uh, yeah. So, anyways, he's just another one of these characters, kind of like a Bill Nye type character, pushing the scientism agenda. And the dude actually, he's really very bad and very dishonest with the way uh, that he actually analyzes the scientific research. Like he's been caught out so many times misrepresenting studies and straight up lying about the content of some of these studies just to push his agenda.
Yeah.
Um,
My favorite part about him is the like in between every sentence he says and
yeah. He's I'm wiping. I've got
You're
a little bit of
weeping.
allergies right now.
You're still
Don't call
weeping.
the police, guys. I do have a little bit of a runny nose.
You're
Don't
weeping.
be calling the cops on me. Um,
You're weeping from your orifices.
I'm weeping. My nose is weeping, weeping tears of joy. Yeah, I mean he's just a goofball. This guy Gregor. But I mean he's pretty insignificant as far as like the grand scheme of things. But I thought it was really funny that he had this speech where he's warning about future virus outbreaks and he's pulling out these Department of Homeland Security documents that are talking about exactly how they're going to handle future outbreaks. And this is a 2008 document that he's
Yes.
talking about. And on this document, he's mentioning things like social distancing, mandatory quarantines and lockdowns and stuff like that. So it's just funny that he's reading these not Fusion GPS,
Now let me
these
let me ask you
DHS.
let me
Yeah,
ask you this. So a lot of these types of people, they position themselves as anti-establishment. They position themselves as against the man, right? Like you mentioned that
yep,
he wanted to tie his approach in with these other supposed social justice causes. And so a lot of times these people position themselves as we're going to fight the corporations, we're going to fight the man, we're going to get change through, we are going to fix society, we're going to revolutionize all these different control structures, man. But the reality is that the very things that they're pushing are establishment plans, corporate plans, control structure plans.
exactly. So this all ties in. I mean, the tying in with the reason diet is very important is to a lot of these people. Obviously, food as a means of social control. Like if you control what people eat, if you ration them food, for instance, you can control who breeds. You can control human biology in many ways, right? If you can create nutrient deficiencies in large portions of the population, you can make them more vulnerable to social engineering propaganda. You can literally numb people down by depriving them of nutrients.
Right, but can you highlight some examples of where? I mean, I think the biggest fallacy, like when you were debating with those vegans, that vegan couple the other day, or this vegan couple, or this whatever they are.
Those annoying vegans, is what they call
That's what
themselves.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they, along with many of these sort of normie clowns that you interact with, they would assume that they're actually fighting against some kind of corporate thing. But what's ironic is it not just select corporations and select special interests that are in fact pushing the vegan agenda, and it's
Yeah.
not about health or even about ethics. Ultimately, it's a
No,
weird
no,
anti-human
not at
ethic.
all. Not at all. It's about social control and it's about the control of
Yes,
the resources, right? So
right.
you have the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development contains it's this it's a conglomeration of tons of Fortune 100 companies. You've got Google is a member. You've got Michelin, Shell, BP, Cargill, Tyson Food, not Tyson, Monsanto, Bayer, Merck. Um, all the biggest food producing companies are a part of this group, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, who are also pushing for, through an organization called Eat Lancet, the Eat Lancet Commission, EAT, all capitals Eat. And this is run by, it's a group, it's an NGO run by the lady called Gunhild Stordelin. And they're using money from groups like the trust, like the Wellcome Trust. The Wellcome Trust also works with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, on vaccines and whatnot. The Wellcome Trust is a pharmaceutical trust out of the UK. Another one of these like billionaire philanthropy groups, much like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, and a lot of these other globalist NGO shell games get played with this stuff. They are pushing through the Eat Lancet Foundation, the Eat Lancet Committee, for planetary dietary guidelines based on a plant-based diet. Basically telling people that you have allotments of like, I think it's like half an ounce of meat per week, something absurd like that.
Right.
And they want people eating things like lentils and beans and an inherently nutrient deficient diet. And Bayer Monsanto is on board, like I mentioned. Cargill, who runs over 50% of the international grain trade, a lot of big pharmaceutical companies. So you've got big corporate interests, NGOs, and the WHO all pushing for plant-based diets. So the WHO, run by this guy Ted Ross. Ted Ross he's a politician, no medical training at all, never been involved in medicine at all. He's a diplomat, dictocrat guy out of Ethiopia, who was involved with a revolutionary Marxist movement, violent revolutionary Marxist movement that are responsible for many people's deaths. This guy was involved in some scandals, including the cover-up of cholera outbreaks in Ethiopia a few years ago. And there's actually a petition to have him tried for crimes against humanity. This guy, Tedros, is basically a lackey for Bill Gates, right? The WHO receives like at least 30% of their funding from China, major funding through organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation, historically have funded the WHO. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funds the WHO. The WHO has been involved in a lot of these exercises and simulations of outbreaks and whatnot. And they are also pushing for plant-based diets, right? So Ted Ross has come out and said that we need to go on a more plant-based diet for our health. Excuse me, for our health and for planetary health, for the health of Gaia, right? Because Mama Earth is dying. So clearly we need to eat mass-produced corporate kibble instead of producing animal foods, right? Animal foods that can be produced locally, that you can produce them in your own backyard. You can have backyard chickens and have your own eggs. You can have a small piece of land and have sheep and goats. You can run cattle on leased land if you don't even have land. You can go lease land for real cheap, run cattle on it, and then end up making enough money to buy your own land later on. People are able to produce food off of land relatively cheaply with low inputs, with no chemical input, with no GMO seed input on small amounts of land with animals, right? But these people want to restrict your ability to eat these foods, not just because these foods are necessary for human health and it's going to dumb you down and make you more vulnerable to infections and whatnot when you remove these foods from the diet, but also because they can sell you the mass-produced, globalized corporate slop kibble.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, so anyways, this Dr. Greger guy, he's a front man for these big corporate interests. He doesn't even have to be directly funded by them. He's just out there, promoting what he claims to believe is the best optimal human diet. And but really, the big money behind this stuff from these big foundations, NGOs, and Fortune 100 companies, including Google. Unfortunately, here we are on YouTube talking about.
But I like that you compared him to. He's kind of like the diet version of Bill Nye or Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? What they do for the pop scientism, he's doing this in the realm of diet, right?
Absolutely, and he's been on not Regis and Kelly. Who's Kelly's new boyfriend? That dork from Ryan Seacrest.
I don't know. Okay.
I thought he's been on these morning shows and international.
I'm gonna have to call you out because I have a peer-reviewed study here that actually refutes your claims, because you've claimed many times that Dr. Greger passes gas some 20 times a day. I have a peer-reviewed study in front of me, Tristan, that says that Dr. Greger breaks wind the normal amount of times per day. So that actually refutes your entire argument that the vegan diet is not good for the digestive system.
Yeah, I cannot.
I mean, this I have charts that actually chart his toots in this paper. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, I think he pays carbon indulgences, right? So he sponsors vasectomies and abortions. So the amount of abortions and vasectomies that he actually sponsors helps to offset the carbon emissions from
If
his.
I go to Dr. Greger, Tristan, and I for one whole day film each of his farts and I show them to you on camera, will you admit you're wrong?
No, absolutely not.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
well
This is the internet, bro. We're
yeah,
never
we
wrong.
know who follows the science here today.
We're never wrong, man. It's the internet. But yeah. So I mean, there a lot of these characters that you see, you know, promoting some of these ideas do have. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how important diet is, how
Mm-hmm.
important controlling the food supply is. Henry Kissinger wrote about this in
State
National
Department
State.
Memorandum 200. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So this is well known. This is why the Rockefeller Foundation funded the rise of the Green Revolution and then the Gene Revolution, right? Which F. William Engdahl details in his book, Seeds of Destruction. And also, there's a book by, what is that book called? The Rockefeller Foundation and the Rise of the New Biology.
Yeah, the one you recommended. That's right.
Lily E.K. Lily E.K. Um, as a book
You know what
about
else
the.
would apply to this is so David in Rockefeller in his memoirs, he has a whole section on the founding of World Wildlife Foundation, right? Now that deals with conservation, but this ties directly to diet because we're seeing this narrative that conservation of animals and the animal, biosphere, this kind of stuff, that humans are messing this up. And so we need to stop humans eating meat, right? The eating of meat is actually disrupting the biosphere.
Well, if this is, I mean, this ties directly in with all this COVID stuff, the this carunka virus stuff. Um, Allegedly, this originated in what's called a wet market. Right, the wet market in Wuhan was a supposed originating spot, like patient zero supposedly came from there. And this is it's kind of been debunked. They're saying now that it must have been around long before it was detected. And they didn't find it in any of the animals at the wet market. Right. So now the Guardian actually just published an article yesterday with a and they referenced a video from this guy Earthling Ed. Now Earthling Ed is another one of these interesting kind of vegan
Another
characters
one
that's
of your
called.
buddies.
Yeah, yeah. So Earthling Ed, who refuses to engage with me or acknowledge my call outs for a debate. Earthling Ed, whose real name is Edward Gaunt. He used to say his real name was Ed Winters, but it turns out that was a lie. It's actually a pseudonym that he made up. So he's got his own TED talk where he tries to portray himself as like the vegan Jesus, basically. He's got long hair.
He
He's
does
very
kind of have that appearance, yeah.
yeah, yeah. He uses like the I got my hands out with arms wide open. He's the vegan Jesus, and he's there was an article in the Guardian that was basically referencing his video where he's blaming this outbreak on people eating animals.
Mm.
So we're going to see this get tied in more and more in media as we have these big foundations, these billionaire philanthropists who are heavily invested in pushing the idea of carbon taxes, carbon indulgences, and this new economic system based on that. Which you and I have been talking about this for a few years now. I mean, some of the first episodes we did together, we talked about the eventual bringing in of the carbon-based economy,
Yeah.
social credit score system, which it'll be tied in with environmental conservation, right? They're
Yeah.
going to tie it with environment. They're going to use words like ecosystem services, which is basically like, um, look at me. I'm Leonardo DiCaprio, and I own 500,000 hectares of Ecuadorian rainforest that I'm profiting off of. And when you pay taxes, you're going to pay taxes to subsidizing me because I own all this land and I'm supposedly conserving it. Right? That's how they're going to set this up. Massive trading schemes based on ownership of big swaths of lands by billionaires and foundations. And our taxes, our carbon tax, your international carbon indulgences are going to go to are going to be used for stuff like this, right? So Leo DiCaprio is going to make money for just owning a shitload of land that he can also get the rights to sell certain minerals from, to mine for certain minerals, to sell lumber from, and even extract oil from. But he's going to get carbon tax. He's going to get carbon credits for maintaining certain parts of it. It's just a giant.
Well, have you
scam.
ever considered that maybe you should pay taxes to Leo's yacht?
I never thought about it like that.
I mean, if morals are relative, why not?
It's true. I mean, he can help repopulate the world with his harem of cokehead
Supermodels. Well, yeah. So I like this that we're starting to see that actually a lot of this stuff is connected. You might think, well, diet doesn't really have anything to do with carunka and the measures that are being brought in as a result of carunka. But it does.
You see that Guardian article, you could find the Guardian article where they're talking about it's animal agriculture, not the wet markets. But also in China,
Exactly.
one of the big sources of food for a big portion of the population are those wet markets.
Right.
So you have rural people who are raising some of these wild animals like civets and whatnot, but they're also trapping them. They're catching them. They bring them to these these wet markets, and they sell them.
There's too many humans, and we're eating too many of the animals. You see,
but you know that China has recently supposedly banned wet markets, right? So ever since this coronavirus thing came out, and people were all freaked out about those wet markets, China's banned those wet markets, and that's a main source of income and food for a huge portion of the population there. And everybody in the West is cheering this on. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it like I'm not emotionally attached to the wet market.
No, you are. I've seen you and your love for that bat soup.
That bat soup,
I've seen you sucking down, slurping down bat soup every morning.
Look, I mean, I like myself some rat sushi as much as anybody does, but it's pretty alarming to me. It's not that alarming to me that these people are trading wild animals in these markets. Yeah, sure, there might be some unsanitary conditions in a lot of these, and it might be kind of screwed up, but you're going to take away these people's source of food. I mean, to me, it seems like a major depopulation move going on in China right now.
It's the model. There is the model, and then just like California and New York, what happens in California and New York spills into the rest of the U.S. 15 years later. It's the same kind of thing with these areas that are test places. So they'll introduce these kinds of experiments there and see how it works and what they can do there. And that's why you have people like Kissinger and Rockefeller and all these people. They'll say, China is the model.
Well, and what's crazy is you see a lot of these vegan activists talking about the wet markets and making a big deal about it. Like you can go through YouTube. I get a lot of vegan suggested videos on YouTube because I deal with a lot of these people all the time, talk to them and watch some of their videos and whatnot. But a lot of them are, making a lot of comments and making a lot of posts about these wet markets and they're frothing at the mouth at the idea of further legislation on meat, further legislation against animal foods. And I mean, what I'm concerned with, there's a lot of things that are concerning about what's going on right now, but once food starts being rationed and people don't have control over what they pick and choose and buy, right? In certain situations, if there are major restrictions on movement, if there are major restrictions on people's ability to work, like you're seeing in Europe right now, there aren't migrant workers to harvest a lot of the crops. Right, and who's going to be planting these crops if nobody's allowed to go to work, right? In the U.S., the price per pound of beef that ranchers are receiving has plummeted. National corporations, the GMO conglomerates, and the giants, right? So you've got Tyson Foods, Cargill, right? The biggest corporations in the world are the ones who consolidated the meat packing industry, right? Now you still have independent producers, you still got ranchers all over the U.S. They raise cattle and then they bring them to auction. They sell them, and then they get fattened up at these feedlots, and then they get sold. And they get processed. They get slaughtered and processed by the big meat packers. So you can see right there how that model of consolidation has squeezed out the profits for a lot of small producers, and those big companies like Tyson Foods, they're also invested in these plant-based meat alternatives that are being pushed now.
Yeah,
that are
beyond burger, this kind of nonsense, right?
So they're using subsidized corn, subsidized soy to make like fake GMO heme to put it in the juices in the Impossible Burger, like this GMO heme from soy that they put in there. And the guy that runs Impossible Inc., I think it's Patrick Brown, I think is his name. He openly says that their goal is to get rid of animal agriculture altogether.
Remember that quote from Bertrand Russell that I've covered many times in Scientific Outlook, where he says that in the future coming technocratic society, he says that the normies will be told that meat is bad and you can't eat meat, and he says you'll be given synthetic meats. He wrote that in 1932, He says, but the elite, he says, will continue to eat their steaks.
Yeah, right. And what do you say? Only millionaires will have real steaks or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of that. One of these big corporate CEO guys. Remember, he got busted like a month or two ago, where he was out eating steaks, and somebody took pictures of it, and he had forced his company to go vegan.
Yeah, dude. I remember. It's, I mean, this stuff. A lot of people, a lot of people get all triggered, like, oh, you just hate vegans. It's just low hanging fruit, and
It's a cult. I mean, we see this Extinction Rebellion. It's being put into a cult.
Well, Animal Rebellion is the offshoot of Extinction Rebellion, right? So you have Extinction Rebellion, and then you've got what's called Animal Rebellion. And guys like Earthling Ed,
Right.
Joey Armstrong, a lot of these other internet characters who are basically grifters who waste people's money on, who take people's Patreon money and make like 20. Some of these dudes are pulling in like 25 grand a month as professional activists.
I can't believe people are this stupid. Are they really this dumb? Who is falling for this stuff?
Lots of people. I mean,
Wow.
young millennials, and that's what it is. Young atheist millennials who hate their daddies and have
Think that they're gonna rebel by ending.
They're gonna rebel by
eating
starving
meat.
themselves. Like, I'm gonna rebel by, I sit at dinner with my parents and I hate them, and now I have a reason to tell them what pieces of shit they are because they're eating meat. I can't even sit with them. I can't even be with them now. It's like this kind of mentality these people get. But the Animal Rebellion is the offshoot of Extinction Rebellion, and they're animal rights activists.
Daddy, I fucking hate you, Daddy. I fucking hate you, Daddy. You eat me, right?
Exactly. Well, Greta Thunberg, right?
Greta, she's the model for this. Yes. So no longer are you rebelling by smoking cigarettes behind the lunchroom and drinking beer on the weekends. Now you rebel by destroying yourself by not having nutrients, right?
Yep. So, I mean, I'm looking at Bertrand Russell's book right here, and, here on page 163, as for meat, it is not a necessary article of diet. And if population continues to increase, we may assume that synthetic beefsteaks will be served everywhere except at the tables of millionaires. I mean, it's like, so a lot of these dudes have been writing about this for a long time. But not only is diet important as far as human health goes, but fertility as well.
Oh,
this is
good
another
point.
Fertility, sperm count, a woman's ability to conceive. If you're nutrient deficient, you will not be fertile. Infertility is one of the major agendas of a lot of these
Absolutely
NGOs and these people like Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates is obsessed with reducing the human population. Also is one of the biggest investors in Beyond Meat. So these people have lots of interest in controlling human diet, and one of the most powerful things, one of the most powerful ways, or one of the most effective ways, rather, of downgrading human health and longevity is reducing essential nutrients from their diet. There's nothing essential in lettuce. There's nothing essential about plant foods at all. Animal foods are the only absolutely essential foods. So really, it's a control of biology, control of movement, control of breeding is really
exactly. That's the whole thing. And I want to remind everybody. So yeah, we're all familiar probably maybe with this book. It has the famous chapter, Proud Internationalist, right? David Rockefeller's memoirs. And in this famous chapter, he states specifically that he is absolutely on board and happy to be a part of a conspiracy, and he even uses the term conspiracy, on page 405 to bring about a global order through a secret cabal. And he says, I don't care if anyone knows because it's in the open. He says, you can call it secret or you can call it in the open. It doesn't matter. Because he says, we must be a new world order. Then he goes on to say that we will use entities like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the IMF, NAFTA, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission. He says all of these are essentially the means by which this will be brought into place. These big-scale steering committees. Bilderberg. He even has a chapter on Bilderberg. I say that to get around the censors, right? Bilderberg, right? And then he goes on to talk about the international institutions that we mentioned before. He even mentions things like Etienne d'Avignon, the EU. But let's not forget world wildlife and the control of. I'm pretty sure there's a section where he mentions Prince. Isn't Prince Philip
Yeah,
that started?
the WWF, now they're called the World Wild. It's not World Wildlife Fund anymore.
Yeah.
The WEF or something.
Yeah,
like
they've and the Annenberg Foundation is part of that. So these big foundations are a big part of this. And I want to mention too, one of the things that a lot of people miss in this book is the middle of the book where he goes into the open door with China, right? So he actually has a chapter, the open door, and this whole chapter is about how he went into China. It wasn't Nixon, it was David Rockefeller who went into China and had Chase Bank set up in, this supposedly anti-Western regime. Now, I thought that
what's funny is the Rockefeller Foundation was heavily involved in the funding was what was called the Green Revolution. Which
that's what I was going to get at, was that, yes, the green is connected to this, right?
The Green Revolution, this was when this all kind of started, this greenwashing stuff, right? The Green Revolution was basically petrochemicals, agrochemicals, Bayer Monsanto GMO food eventually came out of this. And it was the consolidation of the agriculture industry and the mechanization of it, right? The removal of the small family farm from the equation and the industrialization of food production in the name of efficiency and in the name of feeding the planet. But it ended up being a huge disaster in a lot of places, like the golden rice scam, where they try to sell India and the third world on this golden rice. Oh, it's gonna be this beautiful vitamin A enriched rice. It ended up yielding really shitty, and a lot of people had issues with it. So they've always sold you on this utopian ideal of you're going to produce so much food, you're going to free these people, these poor, stupid farmers who are out there living in the cuts. They're not going to have to produce food anymore because we're going to be able to produce so much for everybody. We'll have so much of a surplus. It doesn't end up working out. The yields are not what you're sold on, and the GMO stuff. There's also massive health detriment to a lot of this stuff as well, not just from the actual organisms, which who knows what's being spliced into some of this stuff, but from the chemicals that are used, the fertilizers that are used that destroy the soil, glyphosate, which is one of the most toxic compounds on the planet. There's been many lawsuits that have actually been won in the last few years about glyphosate causing cancer. And that's the main ingredient in Roundup, which gets sprayed on all these Roundup resistant GMO crops. This whole thing was bankrolled by the Rockefeller Foundation. And if you read Lily E.K.'s book, the Rockefeller Foundation and the Rise of the New Biology, she documents how this is essentially an extension of their eugenics work, right? Their eugenics work transferred into microbiology, transferred into basically controlling the sciences through the university system. And it's Caltech, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Rise of the New Biology. I think the book is called, by Lily E.K. You can find a PDF of it and print that out, or you can get the actual book. It's not expensive, but very good read right there. And it's all about how this whole microbiology, the modern medical system and modern agricultural system is an extension of the eugenics movement that was, of course, funded through the Rockefellers and a lot of these big philanthropists of their day in the early 20th century. So
yes,
the GMO revolution and the Green Revolution, what we see now with the Green New Deal and all this stuff, it's the same economic entities behind this, and it's just the next phase of their full spectrum dominance of every part of biology, of the production of food, of ultimately the consumption of whatever resources you consume. They want to track, trace, and control all of that.
Yep. There you go. You see that that meeting there.
Yeah, I see.
And that's with Prince Bernhard, who helped start that with the support of David Rockefeller. And Prince Bernhard also involved in the conservationist movement. Exactly. So
yeah,
again,
conservation. It's like the World Wildlife Fund. They talk about conservation, but they're involved in all sorts of shady stuff, like funding death squads.
Yes, these are oftentimes fronts, right? This is what a lot of people don't, especially the naive kind of vegan crowd that you're interacting with. They have no knowledge whatsoever of like intelligence operations, of cutouts of fronts, and how these kinds of entities function in multiple ways at multiple levels. These can be fronts for funneling money to all kinds of different black operations.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I think the eugenics connection is really fascinating, and that's a really important one for people to understand. Bill Gates is a rabid eugenicist. His father ran Planned Parenthood. He's obsessed with getting rid of the poor. He's always talking about how much he hates poor people, right? And we just, all these poor people are going to use up all these resources, and we've got to make everything equal. And it's funny because now we got, Madonna talking about this is the great equalizer. Isn't that what she said? Equality is one of the sustainable development goals. They want equality. They talk about climate justice and whatnot.
Are we noticing a pattern here of really, really wealthy people who seem to love communism? Why? I wonder why that is. I can't figure out why so many wealthy zillionaires like communism.
Exactly. Well, you've documented this many times. Communism is monopoly capitalism. That's what it is. It's the end result. What?
I'm doing that the Wojak meme where he's like, exactly.
So now all right. So Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates. All these people were waiting for Bill Gates to come out with the new shot to save the world, right? Bill Gates is going to save us from the virus. Bill Gates just cares about poor people.
Well, let's save some of the Gill Bates part for part 2. Don't give away too much because you covered a lot in you've done a couple streams this week that were really information packed. You went through a lot of his TED Talks. So I'd like to get to some of that in hour 2 for the subscribers because you've gone further into the Gill Bates stuff lately than I have. I looked at some of the TED Talks before I made my videos this week, but you stumbled upon more of his stuff. But I did see him saying that this, like you said, would be a great equalizer. Now, wait a minute. Why is a billionaire so interested in everything being fair? Wait a minute. What?
Because that means for him, it means everybody's using Microsoft products. It means everybody's eating the same rationed kibble, the nutrient fortified kibble that he spreads all over Africa with his best friend, one of his best friends and business partners, the richest man in Africa. Forgot the guy's name.
Eddie Murphy, because he came to America. Remember?
It's Eddie Murphy, the richest man in Africa. But yeah, I mean, there's so much here. There's so much to talk about and to unpack with this. Sometimes it's like finding a starting point of figuring out which thread to start unraveling.
No, this is good because I mean, we haven't gotten into this book a whole lot on my channel. I intend to in the near future. It's going to be one of our elite books because it's so important and it reveals so much. But just like what you're talking about with Gill Bates and the TED Talk where he went into how this is going to make everything equal. We're all going to have a more fair world. We find the same thing here, right? We find this in his memoirs. We find it in his famous 1979 New York Times editorial. We find it in the support for Mao on the part of the OSS and Bill Donovan. I have the explanation as to why that is because I've read extensively on this topic. Anthony Sutton wrote a whole series of books about Wall Street funding Bolshevism, Wall Street funding, all of these different movements that seem to be counterproductive to the markets. And the reason I keep stressing this is that so many people, especially in the normie sphere or even in the alt sphere, they can't understand that it's not just government incompetence. There is a layer of people and power above the government incompetent loons and theatric performers. The vaudeville of government is a layer that has people way smarter than that and way more powerful than that. And I'm really tired of all the people who they get it right. They get a lot of things right and when they comment on this stuff about how government leaders are incompetent. Well, wow, whoa, mind blown here, right? But come on. Do you really think that people who built the internet are incompetent? Really? You think so? Do you really think the people who run these gigantic corporations are incompetent? Really? Or are they very competent and more like Blofeld evil geniuses, you see? That's my point here. There are evil geniuses. There are Blofelds. They do exist. They do float around on yachts and plan how to take over the world, literally.
People wrote books. I mean, you can read, like you mentioned, the Scientific Outlook from Bertrand Russell. Mm-hmm. There's an evil genius right there. He's not even that smart, but I mean, there's
right.
Low level evil genius right there. I mean, you've got Bill Gates, another one of these guys, Gill Bates. How do you pronounce it? It's so hard to.
I just did it as a joke, and because I was doing it as a joke because they're going to start censoring everything, and so everything will have to be said in code. I was just making a joke, and some guy was bitching at me the other day. You're too scared to fucking say his name. Why don't you say his name, pussy? You were going to say. Well, I'm making jokes. Okay, I can make jokes and call somebody Gill Bates or whatever. Anyway, all right. Go ahead.
He won't name the Gates.
the GQ. Right, the Gates question. Right? Name the gates.
Gates question.
All right, so we've almost gone for an hour. I'm going to take a few of these super chats. This is not going to be forever. We're going to have more of this topic. We're going to cover the history of this kind of movement, the dysgenic stuff, in hour 2 for subscribers. I want to remind everybody right after this, we will be going live. We got 500 live almost tonight. Welcome, everybody. Follow me on my Instagram and make me famous and popular. Also, send me super chats so that I can make the wealthy cut when Gill Bates decides who goes into his Blofeld future, right? Gill Bates is right now watching this live stream on his yacht somewhere, on a smart yacht, and he's trying to decide, well, if Jay gets enough super chats tonight, I'll let him make the cut. We'll bring him out to the yacht, and he can be part of the future.
You have to do like this. You know, your hands have to be clasped, and you have to kind of like you bend over a little bit, and if we could just
if we do this, so. Everybody, right there is the link to Alternate Current Radio, where we will immediately switch over to Boiler Room. Boiler Room tonight.
We can name the bill on that one.
Boiler Room is going to start in 10 minutes. So everybody, there's that link. If you want to continue tonight's conversation over at Alternate Current Radio, shout out to Hesher and Spore, the Boiler Room. Let's take these super chats. And remember, tomorrow, Tristan and I will have part 2, more of this stellar information for those who subscribe to Jay's Analysis. Of course, also subscribe to Tristan's channel listed below in the show description over at Primal Edge Health. And
we'll do a stream on my channel with Jay sometime this week too, or next week.
Absolutely. You got it. Countess Powers for $5. She says, thumbs up, clap, clap, thumbs up. Thumbs up, clap, clap, thumbs up. Eli Hernandez for $5. She says, SARS and COVID number 2 have not been properly isolated. There's a study from 97 that says 1 in 4 people die from these kinds of lung complications in China because of bad air. I have heard this. I would not be surprised if any of that's true.
There were protests in Wuhan the months before this all happened about the terrible air quality that was there, one of the worst air qualities in the world. And that hardest hit area in Ecuador, awful air quality, major other infections that are going on, including dengue fever. So Guayaquil is a major breeding ground for the virus right now, but also loads of other comorbidities there, including obesity, terrible diet, mercury-laced water, really, really bad water that's, carrying a lot of dengue fever too. So yeah, lots of comorbidities in a lot of these places.
So since I did get enough super chats tonight, Bill Gates is floating on a space yacht with Elon Musk right now, and he sent me a text and said that I make the cut. I will go into the future. Sorry for the rest of you. You don't get to go. Gigi, nice. $10. She says, thanks for all that you do. Please ask people to help out the monasteries and visit their stores as the sales are down. Yes, by the way, so if you're going to buy Orthodox Bibles and books and this kind of stuff, buy them from the monasteries. Great point. Don't buy them from
Amazon. Screw Amazon.
Yeah, don't buy them from these gigantic
like whatever things. You do, stop buying shit from Amazon. Wherever you're going to buy, anywhere but Amazon, please.
Eli Hernandez, $5. Han has toxic air. Market area where the new bat flu came from is the worst air. Well, yeah, could be.
Bro, you just copied me. That's what I said, man.
Is it is the air quality around Dr. Gregor bad from all of the toots?
No, the smug cuts right through it.
The smug cuts it. Okay. So you can cut the cut cheese with the smug of Dr. G's.
It better be soy cheese, my friend.
What is the Orthodox view on diet during Lent? We did a stream with Father Deacon Dr. Ananias. You can go watch that at my channel, at Tristan's channel, and at Dr. Ananias' channel. So that question has been answered many, many times over in a 3-hour stream. Go find that stream about vegan diets with Dr. Ananias and myself and Tristan. Sean M. Feingan. Sean M. Finnegan. Yes, for five lucky charms, he says, me lads, Tristan, what's the worse? What is worse, RFID chips or potato chips?
That's a really good one.
What's worse?
I'm hoping Bill Gates can make some potato chips to help get rid of this.
RFID potato chips.
Yeah, RFID potato chips from Bill Gates. That'll help solve the climate crisis and the virus crisis.
Okay. All right, everybody switch over now, if you would, to Alternate Current Radio. I'm sure in the next 10, 15 minutes, Boiler Room will go hot and live. Somebody asked me the other day, where's Boiler Room on your YouTube channel? Why have you gotten rid? I haven't gotten rid of it. It's just that a lot of
You can't
times,
say anything on YouTube, guys. You can't say anything.
most of the time, yeah, Boiler Room is always
you
going.
Dyer. You have to say gay Dyer. You have to say
Stop,
gay Dyer.
stop that. Go to Alternate Current Radio, and there's always Boiler Room. You can also listen to all of the podcasts on the podcast stuff, right? So nothing has gone anywhere. It's all still around.
And in my podcasts are there too. If you guys want to hear the Primal?
That's right. Tristan is also there. But why would you listen to Tristan when you can see his beautiful visage? All right. Thank you. Subscribe to Tristan. Thank you, everybody. We had fun tonight. And tomorrow, again, Tristan and I will be doing part 2 for subscribers. You can subscribe at Jay's Analysis, or you can subscribe below here on the YouTube channel. Hit join, and we will do the rest of this talk for you. Beautiful, beautiful subs. We love you guys. Everybody have a good night. And go to Alternate Current Radio to listen to Boiler Room.